Heyo, it's Omni Dog. Thank you for tuning in and joining us today. It is Saturday. It's snowy here where I live, so it's a perfect day to stay indoors and interview a fangirl. Fangirl, how are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. How about yourself? It's snowing here in Baltimore as well.
Yeah, I am just an hour south of you, and it is, yep, it's coming down hard. I don't
That
think
means
it's gonna.
schools are going to be, if it was school day, then that means we would have stopped school and all kinds of, financial institution and everything over here in Baltimore if it snows a little bit. I don't know how
Right,
it is in
like a
Alexandria.
like a quarter inch of snow stops everything here in Alexandria and Washington D.C. It's crazy.
Right.
Um,
So I want
yeah.
to begin with giving you a public thank you for
Oh.
introducing me to Luther Strode.
Oh,
Today,
awesome.
today I went to see the creator of it, Justin Jordan, at Third Eye Comics. There was a signing event, and he kind of was gracious enough to sign this for me and personalize it. And I kind of told him, like, "Oh yeah, one of my friends kind of got me into it," and he was like, "Well, thank your friend for corrupting your mind."
He said that. That's
Yeah.
funny.
Because we were discussing about like over the top violence in it and stuff like that, and he was like, "Yeah, thank your friend for me for that." So yeah, thank you.
Oh, well, I'm so glad you read it and enjoyed it. That's one of those surprise books that Steve from Third Eye in Annapolis, that's one that he told me about, and I started collecting that in trade paper. Well, actually, I started collecting it in singles and then in trades, and that's one thing that I did upgrade to that. I'll upgrade to a big, beautiful hardcover like that.
Oh yeah,
That's
and
something.
we discussed about how well put together this book is. Like, it's complete collection, and it's like, it's actually a hardy, hardy build for this. Like, especially, and Image does a very good job, though. I would have to give them that. Like, I'm someone who's not necessarily all that into the technical aspect of a binding and things like that, but anytime there's an Image book, and especially the fact that they don't do dumb dust jacket, well, sorry about that. I mean, if you like dust jacket, but the thing is, like, it's like another point of failure for you. But if you can do, like, if they do this hardcover printing and stuff, I love it. So yeah, and it's especially the cover looks really like it actually encapsulates the series.
Yeah, it's a great cover, and I'm sort of with you on dust jackets. They're really more of an annoyance to me. I mean, that's fine if somebody digs them, but I do love the Image books that come without them. But I will say that the oversized hardcovers from Marvel and DC, um, when you take the dust jackets off and there's a
Right,
completely cool, neat design, I like
right.
that. That's like a little surprise to me. So
If
I
you
really enjoy that.
the Sculpt Deluxe edition is actually like that. It's one of the most beautiful ones. Um, I'm actually waiting for mine to get back. I made a mistake of selling them, and now I'm re-getting it back. So I'm waiting for my set to arrive again, and so I can open the dust jacket again and love it again.
Oh, you had seller's remorse. You decided you couldn't live without it.
Yes, that's something that we're going to chat about it later too. But I think Vertigo series, I'm kind of thinking about leaning more towards kind of collecting more Vertigo series as well. Because one thing I realized that I am yet to find the Vertigo series that I hated.
Yeah, that's a good point. Vertigo has since I think that they've been printing since probably about 1988, I would guess, somewhere in that ballpark. And I'm just looking all around at the various things I've got, especially early on. That was an automatic stamp of greatness. You just could pick up a Vertigo book and you'd know it was going to be really good.
Right. So that's why I'm kind of focusing back on it a little bit. I think we're going to talk about a little bit of a collecting and reading and things like that. So that's kind of something that I've decided for the year.
Yeah, okay, good. And let's see, we got a few people in here. We got the Welsh bastard, Ryan Sace. Hey, Ryan. John Wilson. Avi is saying hi. Kenny Crayley saying hi.
Hello,
Sam,
everyone.
Samu von Kluxenberg the third, he also hates dust jackets.
A natural hatred for
Yeah, he has
dust.
a natural hatred. I love it. Um, that's great. Um, so let's see. Um, you have a spot behind you that looks empty to me
Mm-hmm.
on your bookshelf. What's the story with that empty spot?
So this empty spot used to have Jeff Johns' Green Lantern, the Green Lantern omnibus, the three of them. And there was, after seeing, like, not necessarily, even before you made that super awesome video with Lewis about, talking about getting in debt, getting out of debt, and especially the comic collection and things like that. So I kind of started doing that as a little bit beforehand, and that kind of falls into the whole seller's remorse part of it. But at the same time, I'm kind of going through my collection as I read them, and I'm figuring out whether I'm gonna read something again. And
Mm-hmm.
based on that, I am actually curating my collection. So because to me, it's like I feel like, so I have like a Toy Story mentality about all the things at my home, in the sense, like, I feel like they're alive. I'm not crazy. I'm telling you, people, I'm not crazy. But I feel like these books are sitting there and they're always kind of like, oh, I'm never going to be read again. And to me, that kind of feels like, and that does injustice to the book. So I'm figuring out, like, things that I'm never going to read again. And there are people out there who might want them and read them and, give them a better home. So I'm kind of selling them as I'm going. So that's kind of like the story behind it. The other aspect of it is, now I have this nice handy dandy spot which I can now fill up with Batwoman, because that's kind of like a next character that I'm planning on kind of attacking. I mean, that's I'm getting to know more, and I'm actually kind of ordering some Batwoman trades so I can kind of focus on that.
Oh, great. Are you going to be reading the Greg Rucka run and the
Right.
J.H. Williams runs?
Right. So Crushing Crisis, one of our mutual friend, he was on your show as well. So him and I, we are kind of doing like a weekly book club thing. And for March, we have decided to go for Batwoman.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, February, we focused on Black Panther because of the movie and all the hype. So March, we're going to be doing Batwoman. So we're going to be doing Greg Rucka's series, then move on to the New 52 Batwoman, first four, I think, by J.H. Williams. Then we're going to be moving into Detective Comics Rebirth, and also probably the Batwoman solo series as well.
Nice. That's exciting, because I think Batwoman's a great character. They've really done a lot with her to make her really complex and interesting. So that's a great readathon.
Right. And
March.
To me, the fact that I just kind of did a little research about, like, who this Batwoman character is, and only thing I read that she refused to lie about her sexuality and join the army. I'm like, sold. That's it. That to me, that's the side of superheroism is all about, and I'm all for it. I want to now know more about her.
Oh yeah, that's a big turning point for her, obviously, in the book. And it helps shape her as a person. So yeah, you're exactly right. That's a really exciting point of reference for her.
Right. And the thing, she is partner of Renee Montoya, right, from Gotham Central.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she was one of my favorite characters from Gotham Central. So if she kind of shows up as well, so it's gonna be like a double bonus for me.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. You're gonna have a lot of fun, because I love reading and rereading Batwoman, and that's a good point you have about rereading. As some people know, that I am going through my collection and I'm looking at it and saying I'm just not going to read it, and I'm also looking at my collection and saying, am I going to reread it? Should I? Once I've read it, do I want to keep it? And so I love the word curating. It makes me feel like we're like in a
Curing
museum.
ourselves.
Yeah, we're like in a museum. We're curating our collections. So I love that word. So everything I'm going to keep now has to have the rereadability factor. And just as you said, and if not, then I should give it to let somebody else adopt it and give it to a new home and let them raise it up from a puppy to a fully grown omnibus type thing. I don't know, that analogy went anywhere, so sorry.
No, it's perfect for what we do and what we talk about. It's completely in line with that. But and also at the same time, you don't necessarily have to read the whole book. That's what because I don't think I'm going to reread Planetary. It's somewhere over here. I'm going to reread the Planetary as a whole. But there are parts of it that I go back and forth because I know especially that issue where they go to, and then there's a Marilyn Monroe-esque analog who kind of goes through all the experiment that is done on them that kind of kills them. That one issue is like so ingrained in my memory, and I have read that probably 10 times now. So it's not even about the matter of the whole series. It's just about even if it's like a little parts of it that's so close to you and you want to hold on to, by all means, go for it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading Planetary. I'm going to start that Monday after we talk on Omnibros about Black Panther.
Right.
I remember reading Planetary in trades and loving it, but it was so long ago that I forgot. It'll be a brand new experience for me. So I'm really looking forward to that. But Planetary and The Authority, those are two books that I read and loved and have completely forgotten everything about them. So those, I kind of like that when you take enough of a break that you've forgotten it,
right.
enough of it so that it's brand new for you again.
Yeah, I'm actually rereading Sandman now because I have read Sandman back in 2008, 9, 7, 8, 9. In one of those 3 years, I read Sandman in like over a week period. And when I'm rereading it now, I have no memory of it. I remember parts of it, like there are certain panels that is like kind of so, because it was so horrific, so terror-inducing that I remember it for that reason. But in terms of the story as a whole, I'm just kind of figuring it out just now. Like I'm like, whoa, that happened. So it really is an amazing feeling to revisit something that you loved and then you're enjoying again.
Yeah, that's what I think is kind of the benefit of our hobby. Collecting, the only other thing I can think of that's similar is probably collecting music, because if you can buy like a rare record,
right,
and you love the music on it, we can buy not necessarily rare, but we have a collectability factor in buying stuff, and we get the benefit of being able to read it and reread it and really cherishing it. So that's one of the things that I really dig. That's the biggest thing I think I dig about our hobby is being able to read something that's collectible too.
Right. And it's one of those things like, something that's rereadable to me may not be the same for you. So, but
right.
so that's one of the reasons. It's like, okay, if I didn't necessarily enjoy something, there are like tons of people that we know who loved Jeff Johns' Green Lantern. I enjoyed it, but to me, it's like not something that, but if I can give it to someone who will enjoy it and cherish it as much as I do my Day Tripper Deluxe Edition, by all means, that means I made someone happy. So I kind of look at it that way. Just kind of giving it back.
Before we get into Vertigo and Day Tripper and things like that, I'd like to talk a little bit about your library, because that's one way we've talked about. Lewis and I talked about, getting out of debt. Riley and I talked about setting a budget, but there's another option for some people. I don't have this option, but I know a lot of people do. Not only do they have the Hoopla reading app that I guess is
associated with the library.
Yeah, but then you have a library where you've got a ton of great books, like a ton of great books that you can
Right.
check out. I thought you actually owned those books, and it turned out that you had got them on loan from the library.
Yes. So the library, before when I used to live in Richmond, it wasn't as good as Baltimore County Library is. I don't know whether it's because they have a certain link with Johns Hopkins Library, but I am yet to find a title that I didn't find there. And it may not be the omnibus format, but they will have the other formats.
Yeah,
So
wasn't there something last night that Sherlock recommended? Like something, it was kind of obscure, and boom, your library actually had it for you.
right, it was it was an obscure Hong Kong title, like Hong
Oh,
Kong movie title, and
yeah.
I was never thinking that, oh, I'm not gonna get it, but they have the DVD for it, and then there is another title that he challenged me, like, and it's called The Mission, and he's like, well, here's your mission to find the mission, because apparently it's a very hard to find DVD, and I'm going to go on a mission to find it.
In the library or just out in the world in general?
No, in the library. That's the whole point, because I'm
Oh,
yet to
okay.
find a title that the library doesn't have. So yes, I mean, that's one of the way of kind of I am doing it as well. And I think one of our member in our Omnibus Collectors group, Kemi Jacob, he's actually very big on that too. He once posted from his library a receipt that tells him how many dollars he has saved by reading from the library. And that kind of inspired me to go check out libraries to look for books, comic books, or any other prose novel. All my prose novel I read from the library. I don't usually collect them. So one of the good things about it is that I can go and find the first volume. If I really like it, I can continue to get all the other ones and kind of look for more of a upgraded formats, like some of the things that are trade paperbacks are available wholly, but the hardcovers are not. So I can go and look for them on my leisure at a later time when I have more money, or I have some extra cash, but I can still enjoy it. On the other side of things, let's say if I get a couple of trades and I'm not enjoying it anymore, I can just drop it, because if I buy the whole series and two issues in, I'm like, oh, this is not for me, now I'm stuck with it, right? But if it's if it's from the library, I'm like, well, it wasn't for me, I don't have to get the other ones, and that's it. So that's a very I found to be a wealth of a place where there's a wealth of resources where I can just try out different things, different different books, and if I don't like it, that's great. If I like it, I can then go back and buy it for my collection, based on the readability of it.
Yeah, that is a really great resource, and I'm glad we're able to cover that, because it's another way to save money and find out what you like. And as you said, if you really dig something, then you can go out and get it on your own. If you don't dig it, then you haven't dropped $40 on it. You just stop reading it. So you're really lucky. My library system, given that Fairfax County is like such a wealthy county, supposedly, my library just is awful as far as comic books go,
Right.
or graphic novels. I would have to. I haven't tried DVDs, but I would. I'd get on their online. They have an online presence, and so I would get on there and search for DVDs. But I mean, it's really kind of depressing to walk through their graphic novel section. They don't take it seriously at all, and that is something that I wish I could do. I wish I could excuse me, take over their graphic novel section and just flood it with tons of great stuff that I know people will like. But
So yeah, but one of the things, though, I don't know how their library system is kind of set, but over here, each county, all the county libraries are together. So even if the library location itself doesn't have something, they can ask for it from their networks and then bring it for
right.
you. So it's kind of, over here in Baltimore, because I don't know, Maryland has more counties than Fairfax, or like more counties than Virginia, or how maybe they're so close together. It's like a bigger network. So because of that, I'm yet to, like, every title I've asked for, I've found something. So for example, currently I'm reading Gotham Academy, which is kind of which was referred to me because I'm a huge Potterhead, and someone was like, oh, if you like Potterhead, you should read this. And rather than going and buying 5 threads, which will be $50, I'm like, well, let's just get them from the library and see how it is. And so far, I'm really enjoying it. And I'm probably going to get the trades later on because I'm actually really liking it.
That's a book that got so many recommendations. I got so many recommendations on it that I ended up buying. I don't know. Is it 5? I think there's 5 trades.
Yes,
there 3 for the first year, 2 for the second semester, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I would have loved the opportunity to have gotten it from the library.
Right. So this one, I wish I had this book when I was growing up. There's a character there called Maps, and she goes on a little adventure with Damian Wayne. She doesn't know Damian Wayne is Robin, or that the fact that, Batman is Bruce Wayne, but she gets a Batarang from him. And this is her, look at her. Like, she's like, Batarang. And the thing is, like, that would be me as a kid. Like, when I was in her age, that would be me. Like, you'd think, like, the way it's kind of going on, you'd think that she would be like, Damien, but no, she's like, Batarang. So I thought it was amazing. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the good things about going to your library for books, because I wouldn't have picked it up, like, and I wouldn't necessarily dropped money on it, but now I will.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great that you're able to do that. We did have one question that I thought was interesting. I'm going to have to really think hard about it, but Avi asked, what's your best blind buy, Jess and Fariha? As far as blind buys go, my best blind buy.
I actually have mine on hand.
Oh, well, let's see it.
Sheriff of Babylon by Tom King.
Oh, nice.
This was my first ever Tom King book, and I didn't know anything about Tom King. I didn't know Omega Man. I didn't know, like, his Batman or anything. All I knew that he's an ex-CIA who turned into a writer. I'm like, I want to read this. I want to read what he has to say. And so I kind of picked, went on to IST and ordered them, and it is a fantastic book. The deluxe edition is, I think, coming out soon or solicited. I heard about it, but it is really amazing because it truly is his experience in Iraq. He was a CIA operative in Iraq, and there is it talks about Middle East, Iraq war from the point of view of Iraqi citizens. So there is a couple, the 2 of the characters are Iraqi and one of them is an American. And, it's kind of about they are trying to uncover a kind of like a mystery, or like solve a murder mystery. So it's a very well-written book. He had to actually get it certified by CIA and security councils.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he had to remove a couple of pages. So remember when we went to see him in AwesomeCon, I actually asked him, so what do you have to remove? He's like, well, I have to kill you if I tell you.
He was a great guy.
Yeah, he is a great guy. And I actually have mine signed by him as well. But it wasn't, I don't think it was in this one that... Oh, yes. So he actually signed my copy. It says for Fariha, for happiness, because I told him my main name means happiness.
Right.
And he actually signed it. And yeah, so this was my first ever Tom King book. And after I read that, I'm like, I'm going to read everything that he ever written. And so far, I'm like, my worst book that I read by him is Grayson. And that would be my number 35th of my list. So that's what I mean by worst, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, I'm yet.
I love Grayson.
Yeah, I know like a lot of people, it necessarily wasn't my cup of tea, but that's still number 35 in my list. And I've read so far hundreds of titles.
Right. So
So,
it's up there, even though it's not his best, it's still right up there.
right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my best blind buy, let's see, I'm gonna have to say, I would say probably Usagi Yojimbo.
Hmm.
I bought that blind. I mean, I bought it back in 2015 when I just sort of stumbled on the first volume in hardcover, and I just was like, oh, I think this is really rare. I should probably get it. And then I read it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this book is so much fun. I can't believe it. So I think that's probably. Now I haven't read the whole series. I've only read the first couple of books. I know Ryan Sace read the whole series in like 3 seconds, but I mean, he just burned right through it. But I think that's probably that's something that I should be doing a readathon alongside all my other readathons.
So I recently did kind of like a survey in the group for like the top 10, top 5 books that it doesn't change for you, that's set in stone. And Usagi got like, I think, the second highest mentions outside of Sandman. Yeah, so it wasn't, and it's not like the best. We have a 3,000 members group, but it was like not a lot of like it was about 67 people that participated, but Usagi was gotten, I think, like there were like 12 or 11 mentions, like 11 people, like there was like, it was on people's list. So I mean, and people always talk about it. It's all one of those highly recommended ones, and it's. At some point in next year, I'll probably read it.
Oh yeah, I think that you will immediately fall in love with that book.
Right, and the thing is, like, there's like a lot of like the books are like look pretty thick, so I'm a little scared about like kind of getting into that. But I know that if I read it, like that's the only thing I'm probably going to be reading. So yeah, and I'm trying to see if my library actually has. They have the thin trade paperbacks, but in a couple of them are missing. But they said that they can probably get it from their network. So it's something that I'm kind of put on the schedule for early next year read.
Yeah, they're thick, but they are actually a fast read. They're not. Okay. It's not a real dialogue heavy book, so they're not. It shouldn't be that intimidating. It's not like it's a Silver Age type dialogue. It's there are an awful lot of contemplative moments and stuff that go on in that kind of book.
Right.
So,
but I'm so used to seeing Ryan's profile picture as is his name is Usagi? Is a rabbit's name?
Yeah.
So I feel like if I read it, I'm gonna be reading it in Ryan's voice. Because I talk with him, so I know what he sounds like. So I was like, it's gonna be like him running around and doing ninja stuff or whatever.
Ryan the ninja rabbit.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Do you want to talk about Vertigo books now?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
I'm just gonna look at. I just saw one of my favorite Vertigo books is iZombie. That's a great. That was a great book that unfortunately got canceled, and so it had a rushed ending. Have you ever read it?
I have not, but I did watch the show. So is this any way related to that?
My understanding is the show is good, but it barely has anything to do with the book. I haven't seen the show.
Okay.
But it barely has anything. She's a zombie. She eats brains, and that's about it. Because in iZombie, there's like a ghost that's her best friend, and a not a werewolf, but a were-terrier.
Okay.
And there's so many great characters in iZombie the book, but it got canceled, and so it's kind of a rushed ending. It's still good. It's still one of my favorite books, but it definitely suffered from kind of a rushed ending, but that's to me a really good modern Vertigo book. And you already pointed out Day Tripper. There's another one that I think is really good, and that's Heavy Liquid by Paul Pope. This book is bitchin'. I mean, I'll show some. I mean, his art is always really cool. Yeah, his art's really cool, and the story is really amazing about a drug in the future that everybody wants to have.
What's the name of the book
it's
again?
Called Heavy Liquid. That's the name of the drug. It's known. Yeah, it's called Heavy Liquid. It's known as S, or called Heavy Liquid, and it's the ultimate high, and it's really done well. I just really love Heavy Liquid. I have no idea. I think Paul Pope might be kind of controversial as a person. It's possible he may have said inflammatory things, or maybe not. I'm going to stay neutral on that, because I don't want to stop. I don't want to investigate, because I don't want to stop loving this book.
What a world we live in, that we have to kind of figure that out.
Yeah, I know. It is a bit of a bummer that we have too much information.
Right. And speaking of library and stuff, I just looked, and my library has both titles. So prepare to be borrowed. Now? Both iZombie and Heavy Liquid. So
good.
Yeah, so I prepared to be borrowed iZombie and Heavy Liquid.
That's awesome that you can get those. I probably should try. Okay, see, the Clarknado's already saying that Paul Pope's a predator. So frick.
Oh boy. Okay.
There's too much information available on people these days. Maybe Fairfax County has an inter-county borrowing system like Baltimore does, and I should check up on that, because I would love to be able to sample books like you do.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that, in terms of like the Vertigo title, my first ever one was actually Sandman, that I first read, one of the Vertigo. At that time, I was kind of very noob about comic book industry as a general, and I didn't know that Vertigo and DC are kind of interconnected, or the fact that, because I'm like, wow, there is Batman in this comic, and it doesn't have the DC title logo on it, So it's so that's kind of where I first started. But then since then, I have read a lot more of Vertigo titles. And recently, as recent as this Thursday, I finished DMZ by Brian Wood, another kind of controversial character.
Yeah, another one
as well.
Yeah, DMZ is great. You enjoyed that, right?
I loved it. Love in the sense this is now my 7th favorite title. So, that kind of tells you it's how much I enjoyed it. And it's it talks about, it's pretty much the whole thesis statement is, if Iraq war happened in US. I mean, that's pretty much the thesis statement of it. And they talked about every possible war related issue. And not once there was a opinion presented. It's pretty much here's all the story, you make up your mind. And that was very refreshing. And it was I loved it so much. So, this was and my number 4 in my list, Preacher. That's the kind of my other favorite Vertigo title. Preacher was I don't know how to explain it. There's a lot of things that's wrong with it. There's uber violence, Garth Ennis. I think no matter what concept he talks about, I think last time we talked about the boys a little bit. He takes a concept and he just takes it over the top, in your face, slap you in the face kind of thing. And Pritchard talks about religious fanaticism, and he kind of takes it to another extreme. So there is a lot of things that I don't think he portrays Middle America to be very, you know, in a very nice manner. But I enjoyed it a lot because, you know, it's like in terms of character, Jesse Custer, and, you know, everything that he goes through, and also April, or what's her name? Tulip O'Hare.
Right.
Like in terms of character wise, it's a very solid book. So it's one of my all-time favorites. And also obviously Day Tripper. That's my number 3 on my list. And Day Tripper, there's like only one panel that kind of keeps on coming back to me again and again, because I think there was a father son, they're having a dinner, and it was the father that tells him that life is filled with moments, and you know, you just kind of, those moments should stick to you when everything else you forget. If those moments are, you know, you can hold on to, then it's a life worth living. And that's like a very sweet sentiment, you know, that talks about that. It's like, okay, it's not everything, every day doesn't have to be the best, but if you have like every once in a while a couple of, like, you know, really good days, and you can hold on to it, that they inspire you, it's a life well lived. So I think like it has like so many quiet and sweet moments like that in this book, that it's just kind of like, oh.
Yeah, that's a book that I have forgotten. I read it so long ago that I've forgotten, so it'll be like reading it again for the first time. But that book gets universal praise. I don't know that I've heard anybody say a thing bad about Day Tripper. That's like on an awful lot of people's top 5 list.
Right. And I think, like, you know, if you're saying that you don't like Day Tripper, you're probably dead inside. I can tell you that. It's true. It's true. If you didn't like that, because I am someone who is like, you know, my soul has been torn off in like multiple different ways. I have like, you know, many Horcruxes going around, and I love it. So
Horcruxes.
So yeah, I have multiple Horcruxes, you know, a couple of them are here. So, and if you didn't love it, then, well, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm usually the kind of person, is like, if someone disagree with me on something, like, oh, I loved it, but you know, you didn't like it, that's fine, whatever. This is one book. No, you're wrong. Your opinion is wrong. And I will go to war with you on that. You know, everything else, sure, man, whatever, you know. But this is one of that ones that I'm like, no, stop it.
Yeah, so that's almost a character test. You can test somebody's character on whether they're a good person or not, as to whether or not they like Day Tripper.
You know, that you give me a good point. Now I'm gonna put that on the Tinder profile. Go.
There you go. There's another.
Yeah, if you didn't like,
way to screen your candidate.
Yeah, if you didn't like Day Tripper, swipe yourself left off the cliff. Why not?
Off the cliff.
Yes. And then another one is the Punk Rock Jesus. That's an excellent book. And people who, like, you know, who are from our from the Omnibus Collectors group, they will know I have a certain you know, a crush on Sean Gordon Murphy. So obviously, because of that, you know, this was one of the greatest, one of my favorites. Not just because of that, but it's a well-written book. And this deluxe edition, by the way, and you talked about it too. It has the most like, you know, extra edition, like extra stuff I've ever seen. Like,
yeah, look, it's like almost a third of the book is extras.
Right.
It really good extras too.
Yeah, exactly. Like this, look at this. Like, this is all the extra. So this is the main story where it ends, and this is all the extra stuff you get. And like, it has its notes, everything he thought about, the panel design, the character design, and given that he is the writer and the artist for it, so, you know, you get to see pretty much that how much the story meant to him. So this was like a very well done deluxe edition, and still available. So go out and get it. Did
you get him to do the sketch on the sticker in that?
Not on this one, unfortunately, because I actually bought it from bought it from IST later on. This, he did a sticker on my, where did it go? Oh, there it is. Nope, yeah, there you go. He did for my Batman Black and White. Look at that. Can you see it?
Yep, it's cool.
Yes. Yeah, he did Batman on it. And that's before even the first White Knight came out. It was just announced that he's going to be doing Batman 5 days before I got to meet him. And apparently Batman was on his mind. So he drew one for me.
It looks cool. Let me get my punk rock Jesus. I know right where it is, so I can show that sketch.
Yeah, that was a really good sketch he did for you. I remember I took a picture of that.
Uh-oh. That probably didn't sound very good. Okay. We still there?
Yep.
Okay, here's my punk rock Jesus sketch right here.
Oh my god! The fangirling!
I know, that was really cool to buy it from him there at the con and have him sketching it. And we were lucky to get those sketches because it wasn't too long before he got burnt out and just stopped doing them.
Right, that's the thing. That's what apparently I didn't know about it, but someone told me that. He's like, oh, that's great because he doesn't do them anymore. I'm like, wait, what? Because I was actually thinking about if I get to see him again in another con to get my punk rock Jesus to get a similar sketch like you, but apparently he doesn't do them anymore. But oh,
he doesn't do them at all anymore?
Apparently not, unless like
whoa.
it's like I think it's some kind of like you have to go into some kind of drawing ahead of time, and you know he would there's a lottery system, and he probably does 5, and he will do it ahead of time. You don't get to say what he's gonna be doing, so yeah, it got a little bit of you know.
We really got lucky then.
Yeah. So someone on the chat was asking me what did I think about White Knight. Unfortunately, I haven't read it yet because I don't collect floppies anymore. But rest assured, this is one of the ones that I'm not going to go to the library. As soon as the collected edition shows up, I will get it and I will read it that day. So I am so excited because I think I love Batman. I am like an unabashed fan of Batman, like shameless fan of Batman, and everything that I have problem with Batman, he talks about it. So I am so looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am too. It's supposed to be so good. That and Metal are the 2 things that I'm really interested in reading in collected form, since I haven't. And the Rebirth stuff that works in the Watchmen characters.
Doomsday.
So
right?
This year will be a good year for those kind of collected editions.
Right. For me, I'm looking forward to. I actually have a list going. I'm looking forward to White Knight, Metal, Milk Wars, because that's apparently a pretty cool thing. Doomsday Clock and Mr. Miracle, and also what Scott Snyder is going to be doing, Justice League. I'm forgetting it. They have 4 different colors. Like, the Justice League are like put into 4 different sections, and they're going to be going head to head against each other. I think that's the idea.
Oh, I haven't heard this.
No, it was on the group. Oh, come on, please, nerds on the chat, help.
What now? I don't think I read about that.
Hang on, where is it? I'm actually trying to figure out, like, Scott Snyder.
He's gonna have like Justice League Red, Justice League Blue, or something.
Exactly. So Justice League, talking about Justice League. Yeah, he's gonna be doing it post Metal and No Justice. That's what they're called. It's called Scott Snyder No Justice. So it's pretty much in line of Metal, and he's gonna be kind of, there are going to be 4 different factions. So I don't know how much of the Blackest Night kind of falls into it as well. Then each of them are in the different group. So Damian Wayne and Superman in the same group, and but it looks amazing. So I don't know how it's gonna work out.
Wow, this went right by me. I didn't even I don't even recall hearing about this. So that's that sounds great. That sounds really good. I'm looking forward to that.
Right. I just looked at the character design and I'm like, I'm all for it. I mean, and it's going to be Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. So it's like I love the Batman Snyder run. I love it. Yeah. So to me, it's like, woo! So, but I think they're going to be going into that just after Metal. And I don't know whether it's going to be a standalone series or Metal will kind of fall onto that. But, it's coming up.
Okay.
Yeah. So another couple more Vertigo series that will be amiss if we don't talk about that is Scalped and Why the Last Man. So Scalped is it's set in Native American, like an imaginary Native American reservation, and it's kind of talks about the Native American politics, how their fight for their culture, their identity, and all the rampant poverty, and all that, kind of that goes with it. There is a lot of controversy around it, because it kind of portrays Native American as like very poor, uneducated, and not necessarily advanced, nation, advanced part of the society. But however, in my response, my kind of understanding of it is like it's kind of highlights what they're going through because they don't have enough resources and things like that. So there is it talks about that portion of it. It's by Jason Aaron. And from what I've heard, that Southern Bastards, it's very similar to that, but it takes away all the controversy around it. Takes out all the controversy around it because he kind of portrays it a little bit better. And then Why the Last Man? That's by Brian K. Vaughan. I think it was one of the best sellers of Vertigo series for a very long time while it's in its run. And that talks about all the men died and what happens. And it's the women that are left. And there's only one character that is left behind, that one man that survived. And it's kind of he was actually a boy, and it's his journey. Honestly, reading that as a woman, it was a very interesting read for me because not only it kind of it talks about how how much the divide in different genders, in different in all different professions. One of the first book, end of first issue, they talk about okay, now that all the men are gone, what's left? And one of the things that talk about that all the religious figures, head of every religion is gone, because they're all men. And it's a very interesting kind of discussion on that. But at the same time, it also shows that how bitches be crazy, I mean, and it's true. And you don't actually see that in a lot of the time because, they showed Brian K. Vaughan, he's actually he's a very good writer when it comes to he can write men and women, all characters very well. And that kind of portrays that there is there's a different shades, different types of women, just that there's different types of men, in terms of and we don't see that in media that well, because either women are super crazy, or they're good motherly figure, or they're sex symbols, but there's more to it than that, and there's more to us than that. And that I think that Why the Last Man series actually highlighted that.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said about it. It's one of my favorite comic book series. I remember reading it in floppies and just thinking it was brilliant.
Right.
I loved how many different kinds of women. I mean, women are richly depicted in that book. There's not any one-note characters. They're all
Exactly.
very complex and interesting, and they he does have them grouped off because that's a way of survival in the apocalypse,
Right.
in a post-apocalyptic world. But they're interesting groups that you wouldn't typically think of. That I mean that's why he's a great writer, because he writes stuff that I wouldn't normally think of. But it's very interesting how he writes such complex characters for all these different women that are in the book.
Right. And it also talks about, like, we often hear about it that, that I'm trying my best not to be too political about things, but it just talks about, like, that women's ideas and thoughts are often driven by their male partners or their male counterparts. But in that book, it kind of shows that that's not often necessarily the case. They choose to believe that because they believe it, because even though the men are gone, they haven't decided to sway from that faith or their belief in that. They still kind of try to follow that. And it's like I'm saying, it's a very interesting, it was a very interesting book, and there's a lot to talk about. Like, we can dedicate like 4 hours just talking about that book.
Maybe that should be wait, is that one of your, did you just say that's one of the things you and Peter are talking about?
No, we're talking about Batwoman.
Oh, Batwoman, that's right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, Why the Last Man? That would be a great book of the month type thing to read for you guys, because I would be really interested in the two of yours opinions, just taking that book apart. It's so interesting.
Thank you for giving us a recommendation. We will discuss it. I'll discuss it with Peter.
Good. I would love to hear you guys discuss that book. And so is that number 2?
Right. And the last one that I forgot is 100 Bullets. That's the other one. There is that one. It's a very interesting story. The world building of it is really good. Like, in terms of the rules that they set for the universe is really good, but it doesn't kind of it's by Brian Azzarello. However, it doesn't kind of does a good in terms of a universe building. It does in terms of group building and the rules, it's very good, but universe wise it's not. And the thing is, there's a lot of problem with the way the people talk, because Brian tries to use, like, hip talk, and it's kind of doesn't show off as that. It comes off as that. It appears to be like he's mocking. Like, it's not good. Like, it's not, like, when it comes to the dialogues and stuff. There's a couple of people in the group often points out, and I totally agree with it. But in terms of the characters and then their dynamics and then the rules of the universe, it's very good. So it's pretty much the idea is this man shows up to people's lives and they tell them, I am gonna give you 100 bullets, and you can take revenge on the person that affected your life, and you can walk away. Nothing will happen. And whatever you like, either you can take the offer or you can walk away now. But if you take the offer, you must finish it. So, but then it's not all as it seems. It's kind of more complicated than that. That's the whole premise of it.
That is one Vertigo series I have not read, so I need to get that. I need to get that read for sure. I'm staring at it right now.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I will warn you though. It takes up to issue 50. There's about 100 issues of it. There's literally 100 issues. And it's not until issue 50 then you're like, oh, that's what it is.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, thank you for the warning.
Yes, it's actually pretty, like, like I said, like, at that time I actually bought the whole set, the paperback set. So I'm like, well, I guess I have to read the whole thing anyway. So I'm reading, and when it issue 50, I'm like, oh my God, this is brilliant.
Oh, good. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, so I will warn you that though.
Okay. Let's see what I have to talk about? Let's see. I already talked about Heavy Liquid and Punk Rock Jesus. So I'm going to count Ex Machina, even though it's on Wildstorm. It's getting the omnibus put out by Vertigo. So I'm going to count Ex Machina as a Vertigo title that is awesome, even though it was originally Wildstorm. Well, I better grab a copy of, here, I'll take you with me. I better grab a copy of one of the great series of all time that's now on Vertigo. It started out on, good grief, what did it start out on? I think it started out on Wildstorm or Homage or something.
No, it started off with, Homage.
It was like
comics.
Yeah, Homage, and then Wildstorm, and then Vertigo, and now it's a DC title. I don't know what it is, but we're talking about Astro City. And Astro City is just so great. I love it so much. And it's a Vertigo title, like the most recent books are Vertigo. It started out Kurt Busiek's own imprint, Homage. Maybe it has something to do with Jim Lee or something. I can't even remember. But now it's considered Vertigo. So I will throw Astro City into the mix as a great Vertigo book.
What's the premise of that book?
Sorry?
What's the premise of the book?
It's kind of it's superheroes, but very interesting takes on them, as if they really existed. I would say they seem more human than any other portrayals I've ever seen of superheroes.
Interesting.
They've got they even have a Barbie doll superhero that looks just like a Barbie, but she has no emotions. She has no emotions, so she's like a Barbie doll, a real doll, because she has no emotions because she's like a plastic doll. She just fights crime.
Take it from someone who played with Barbie dolls. They don't have emotions. I can tell you that. They just sit there and stare at you and judge you. That's all they do. So
they judge you.
Yes, they do. You know, they're constantly thinking that you're fatter than me. So yes.
So there's it's really well done because it seems they do seem more realistic, you know, as if there were superheroes. This seems like how they would act, you know, like the Samaritan is the Superman type goody, and he goes up against a very ancient old villain whose name I can't quite remember now, but they meet every year now. They've stopped fighting and they meet every year now to have dinner together.
Wow.
To have dinner together, but they're still sizing each other up. Like wherever they meet, they like the villain is still filming the meeting so he can still get an edge on the Samaritan, and the Samaritan's noticing moves that the villain makes. So they're having like a casual dinner together, but they're still sizing each other up in the deep recesses of their mind. So I think that it's so interesting that the way these characters are written, it's just really fun, and I just love Astro City. That's something that I should do. I know I'm saying this about everything I own now, but I mean that's something I need to do a read through alongside other things, because it's not it doesn't take long to read it. I could burn through all the books in a few weeks, and so I really should.
I am a huge fan of, like, you know, books that kind of talks about superhero concepts, but then kind of puts a spin on it. Like, for example, your Irredeemable, Absolute Top, like, top 10, then Power, Watchmen. Though I love them. I love them. Like, so to me, to hear about it fills my heart with joy, because that means another book that I can read which has this concept.
Yeah. Did you see Lewis's comment in the chat? Let's get that guy back on to talk about debt and depressing things.
Yes, let's do that too, because I mean, he kind of put me into like, it's like, oh my God, I have to now think about my comics, my collection as well. But no, he actually talks about a lot of interesting things, so I enjoyed that chat.
Yeah, I did too. That actually, I'm not overstating the case by saying it actually changed my life, because it made me take another look at my collection and the way I collect and how I spend my money, and it really did have an effect on me. And I think it had an effect on other people too, who may have been in the same boat. Maybe, I mean, what Lewis said about at the very end about when your hobby becomes stressful,
exactly,
that's the big danger sign. And my hobby had become stressful, and since I've decided to just cut back a little, sell some things, and really concentrate on reading what I own and enjoying it, I am enjoying it a lot more. I'm still going to be, buying books, but I'm not going to be just, getting multiples of everything that I can't possibly ever read.
Right.
But I think a lot of people, it sounds like, we're in the same boat about needing to cut back or get their collections maybe under control a little bit. So it was a really good it was a really good episode where we covered a lot of good stuff.
Right, but the one that he kind of talks about, and I'm like, that I was kind of like, when you were talking about it, I was kind of screaming about it in the scream at, well, when he said it, I'm like, yeah, is the one that when he said that even if you think you're getting a good deal on something and you buy something, and because you were like, oh my God, I'm getting a good deal of $20, but I would have otherwise have to spend 100, you're still short by $20.
You're still spending that money. That's exactly right.
You're still spending that money, because that money is now sitting in your shelf, gathering dust and looking pretty. It's not, right. You haven't read it until the time you can read it. It's pretty much, it didn't do anything. So you didn't save anything. And that, to me, that has been one of my driver for curating my collection, and also kind of, moderating what I get and what I buy.
Right. Yeah, that was he made a lot of good points in that.
Right. Where's our comic book on that? We need to get we need to get a comic book that talks about this, like about collecting.
Get somebody to illustrate our discussions about budgeting and how to read what you buy.
Exactly.
Actually, let me take a look at the cover of this. Oh, that's a boring black cover. This is a good Vertigo book that I like. That's a really interesting take on vampires. It's by Scott Snyder, American Vampire.
Oh, yes. I did not know that was Vertigo. For some reason, I thought that was an Image title.
Yeah, this Vertigo, and there are currently, I believe, 8. I think there are 8 very thin books. Some of them are out of print, but not hard to find. Okay. These are standard size, and it's got really great art by Raphael Albuquerque in it. So these are really, really interesting vampires set in the West, American West type stories. So I know that actually didn't look like Raphael Albuquerque's art to me. But it's a good 8 book. They're not expensive. You can get them in paperback quite easily, so you don't have to get them in hardcover. But okay. American Vampire, I think you'd really like it. It's a really smart kind of a smart take on the vampire genre.
Oh, great! Yes, I would love that, because Twilight done done wonders for vampire. So we need something to kind of counter that again.
Yeah. Also, I love Sweet Tooth.
Oh,
I never
yes,
thought that
Sweet Tooth. That's yes, that's the another one.
That's I don't even know how to describe Sweet Tooth.
Oh my God.
It's an unusual book about a hybrid boy that gets sort of adopted by this hardcore guy, and the whole world is post-apocalyptic with these hybrid children, and what they go through to try and survive. And I think the one turnoff is probably, like, a lot of people don't really like Jeff Lemire's art that much. I think it works in this story.
Exactly. I have a love-hate relationship with Jeff Lemire's art. I feel like if he tries to do anyone else's story with his art, it's really not good. But when it does his own story with them, somehow it works. I don't know what it is, but it works.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. So Sweet Tooth actually had an ending too that I won't say anything about, except to say that it really stuck with me. It stayed with me.
Yes.
It moved me. It affected me, and I was just that was, to me, was the sign of a really well done book. When you have an ending like that just sticks with you so much and affects you like it did me.
Right. I have actually read everything by Jeff Lemire except for his Moon Knight run, because that's kind of on my list that I'm going to be reading later this year. But I feel like at this point, I can create a hockey team with every washed up hockey players in every group, every book.
Yeah, like, he does have a lot of hockey players.
I mean, you know what? Like, I mean, true. Like, kudos to you, man. He's a fellow Canadian, and and all that. But it's like, I lived in Canada for a long time. I don't know if we love hockey that much, but it was like, I was like, and as I was reading the Sweet Tooth, I'm like, oh, please come tell me you're a hockey player. Come on. And there it is, hockey player.
That's funny.
So I actually tried to put, another one we didn't talk about, Transmetropolitan.
Oh yeah, that's right.
One of the greatest title in, like, I think ever. Spider Jerusalem is my hero, and Transmetropolitan is set in distant future, or at some point where everyone in America went a little bit crazy, and there's like this multicolored cyberpunk society that you live in, and it's a very well written. It talks about American politics, and even though it was written in 2002 2004, it's still very relevant. I don't know what that says about American politics or not. And it's a very good book. And the thing is, like, the art of it's oh my God. And I'm really, really looking forward to the third Absolute to come around. And I'm not a fan of Absolutes. Except for this Sandman ones. I don't actually own an Absolute, but I will definitely buy that because the art is amazing. And it's like, it's very, like, it works just for that book. Any other story, that art would be weird, but that story would not be as effective without the art. So it's like one of those, like, perfect marriage that you would never find. I have never seen it anywhere else. So I'm like, that's another one that I would say we should, like, definitely read it if you haven't already.
Yeah, Transmet is fantastic.
Yeah, I want a spin-off series of Transmet because he's a reporter, and with J. Jonah Jameson as his editor.
Oh yeah.
And Clark Kent is another fellow reporter, and Peter Parker is their cameraman. Like, if I can get a series with 4 of those characters, oh my God, that's like, that's like a true fan fiction for me.
You should get somebody to sketch that scenario for you at a con.
I know. I actually was trying to get this one artist that I know to do it, but he hasn't read Transmetropolitan, and I don't think if someone who hasn't read that could actually kind of get that, kind of emulate that that scene.
Yeah.
Because you really need to know Spider Jerusalem and how he is to kind of do that. It's a shame that honestly, so this is something we can talk about this. Like, I just really don't understand how HBO and Warner Brothers and Vertigo and how the business model works, because HBO is a perfect place where you can do every one of these Vertigo series and make a TV show out of it. Why they haven't done it or why they don't tap into it, it's something that I'll never be able to understand.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that either. I think it would
Like,
be
you know, but
fantastic.
yeah, but I know that Transmetropolitan, I don't think anyone in the world will ever greenlight that, because the production cost of that would be so expensive.
Yeah.
And they would never take the risk on that. And if you don't do it properly, it will crash and burn so quick. So
right. Yeah.
I
it would have to be
understand,
exactly true to the story. Yeah.
Yeah, or like an animated show, maybe. That would probably be the best route to go. But well.
And I have other books that I will talk about, but I want to make sure I talk about my favorite Vertigo book. It's one of my favorite all-time comics, but it's definitely my favorite Vertigo book. And that is Fables.
Yes.
I love Fables. I read it in floppies from the first issue to the last issue, and I thought it was wonderful world building. I thought it was a great concept. I think this would make a great HBO show. They sort of stole it with Once Upon a Time, I guess a little bit, but I haven't seen enough of Once Upon a Time to really say. But with the characters all from fairy tales, almost all of them are fully realized, and it's 15 good-sized books. These are deluxe editions,
right?
And I just absolutely adore Fables, and I can't, as I say with everything I'm talking about, I can't wait to do another reread of this.
Right. And one of the things, though, that Once Upon a Time is like take all the tooth and all the edge out of Fables, and that's Once Upon a Time. I have watched that show until like season 3, and then I stopped it. But it's kind of, and it's a sad thing, because I read, I think like the first couple of deluxe of Fable, and I had to kind of go back to it. But as I'm reading it, I'm like, God damn it, with like, you know, Once Upon a Time took that concept and completely ruined it for Fables, because I don't think now they're gonna, because every time they'll do it, oh, Once Upon a Time did it first, but
yeah, right.
You know, I don't think it's gonna fly that well. And Disney has such a strong kind of, you know, hold on to the fairy tale aspect of things, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know whether anyone else will even try to even like kind of bite into that industry, that part of the genre.
Right. And then this is a group of books that one of my favorite authors or writers can be represented here. And all of these would be the Grant Morrison books. You've got We Three, Flex Mentallo, Sebastian O and the Mystery Play, Joe the Barbarian, Kid Eternity. There's Sea Guy right there. Then one of my favorites, it's two in one, is 2 stories, Kill Your Boyfriend and Vimanarama.
Okay.
I love this. Kill Your Boyfriend and Vimanarama are 2 really cool stories that are just amazingly done. They have different art that's really great. Here's Vimanarama. It's like a Bollywood movie setup. I just love, it's got kind of a joy to it, to the story. Kill Your Boyfriend is everything you probably think of when you hear somebody say there's a story called Kill Your Boyfriend, but Vimanarama is so different, and just so, it's easy to read. Any accessible Grant Morrison thing, you know, is just fantastic, because some of his stuff is so hard to read, but when it's so accessible, it's really like a jewel. You've got yourself you've discovered like a pearl almost that nobody else can know. Like another one with your favorite guy illustrating it
Joe
is
the
Joe the
Barbarian.
Barbarian.
Right.
This was an amazing book by Grant Morrison that's on Vertigo, about Joe that has goes into diabetic shock, doesn't have his insulin, what happens when he's alone at home, and the world that gets created while he's going through his, are they hallucinations or is it really happening? That's what I like. You're never sure with Grant Morrison just exactly what's going on.
I am actually like, my introduction to Grant Morrison has been through Klaus.
Oh yeah, Klaus,
and Happy, which currently now has a sci-fi TV show by I think, what's his name? The guy from SVU is like the lead on it. And so I'm still kind of figuring out Grant Morrison and what I think about it, because he's such a divisive writer oftentimes. And I read his Batman Incorporated, the New 52 series, and I feel like he has a dreamlike quality to his writing. Don't you feel that way? I feel like there's like there's a panel missing between panels. I mean, it's kind of like you have to feel like, I felt like I was in a dream, because, it just, I have like the, like, it's, I don't know how to explain it. I wish I was a better, speaker about these things, but, he writes it as if like, that every other, there's a panel missing between the two panels. I'm like, where did that panel go? It can be frustrating to people, but if you're so kind of like, open to new, finding out new types of writings and stuff, it can be very entertaining.
Well, Riley Moore would flip out if we discussed, if we left out Animal Man, if he knew we were discussing Vertigo and Grant Morrison. This is, of course, and Swamp Thing by Alan Moore. That's another one.
Right.
And Hellblazer. Hellblazer's another one that's a great book.
Right.
I haven't stretched the binding on this, so it's kind of a little tight. But Hellblazer's something that I read 1 through 300 for, and I really enjoyed Hellblazer, Swamp Thing, and you already mentioned Sandman.
Right.
This Animal Man was right around the same time frame, maybe the early 90s, it feels like that came out, and it was really groundbreaking. I thought this Animal Man was.
Yeah, I'm actually so I have what I typically do in terms of like my reading and stuff, like at the beginning of the year, I set myself like, okay, every, like, the grand things grand things of the month. So in the month of May, I'm actually going to be reading Grant Morrison Batman, and after that I'm going to be doing Animal Man, Invisibles, and what other thing, Doom Patrol. But so in the month of May and June, I'm going to be doing a.
You've got it scheduled like that. That's really smart.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I do. I mean, in terms of like, because I kind of got myself into the whole collecting whole bunch of things without kind of understanding what I'm getting myself into, and I'm now paying the price for it. So in terms of like, this is something, we keep going back to that chat, but it's something to discuss. And so now what I do is like every month I have a schedule, like some of the big things that I'm going to do. And at the same time, I'm going to be reading a character that I don't know about. So for example, the month of February was Black Panther, and month of March would be Batwoman. So it's kind of like, and then on top of that, I'll be doing like a grand story reading. So this month it was, I did DMZ, and I'm going to be doing Casanova next. But then also a long running series like, Brubaker's Cap. So it's kind of like, and so I have like this, what you call it, this schedules, and I try to keep to it. And I'm very like, I've been doing very good at it. Good with it.
That's so amazing. That's really impressive, because I'm in the middle of my Hellboy read through, and I get distracted. I'm like a little kid with ADD. I get so easily distracted on I go off on another tangent, and something here, I'll start going, oh, maybe I should do a Grant Morrison read, and then my Hellboy read through gets put on hold. I've been meaning to read BPRD 1946, 1948 for about 3 months now, which is where I am in the read through.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I do the same thing too. But the thing is, like, what I try to do is like in order to in between, like let's say that 2 deluxe, like, depending on the size of things, I would probably put like a mini series in between them. Like, for example, like, I'm doing, because I needed to decompress from reading DMZ. So I'm doing Gotham Academy. And then I'm going to go back to T-Nehisi's Coates Black Panther run. And then I'm going to be taking a break with probably a one-off series, like probably Black Hammer. And then I'm going to be starting on my Batwoman read. So I try to put breaks in them by like, a one small short trades or, something that is a very quick read.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, good. That makes me feel better.
Right. No, because I tried to read like Green Lantern, the Jeff Johns run. At the end of it, I hated Hal Jordan. I'm like, screw this guy. Like, because, I tried to read them all at one go. It wasn't good because, I tend to get really bored. Like, there's other things wrong with like Green Lantern. That's fine. And we don't want to talk about that. But the thing is that I can't do unless it's Batman. I can read Batman for rest of my life because it's Batman. But otherwise, I am not like, I'm not that like, I can't keep myself from keep reading one thing for so long.
I will say, to help, this helped me back when it was coming out, when I had it in, I started in floppies with Invisibles, and then I got it in trade paperbacks, and I eventually got the massive omnibus. But what really helped me is, what do they call those? It's not an addendum. It's not a guidebook. Grant Morrison books come with these things a lot. It's a book that's put out that helps you understand what's going on in Invisibles, because it is extremely dense and extremely complicated and deals with the Dada movement of, the 1920s or whatever. And I'm trying to think what those books are called, but it's a companion book where that if you read it alongside with the book itself, you'll go, oh, this is what he's trying to say here. Because for me, Invisibles was really a struggle without this companion book that I got from Amazon for, I don't know, $12 or whatever it was.
So is that companion book included in the omnibus?
No, the annotated version, right? That's Samuel. Thank you.
Annotated version. Okay, I see it.
It was, if you look on Amazon and look up Invisibles annotated book, it'll be a separate book that you read alongside it, and it helped me a lot, because it is a tough concept. A lot of the stuff in Invisibles, it's not nearly as accessible as Klaus. I mean, Klaus reads like a normal comic book. Invisibles is like, I don't know what acid he was taking and what space instrument he was using that was out of ink or whatever to write with. But I mean, Invisibles can be a challenge. So if you do that. I once I got the annotated book and I knew what I was reading. Yeah.
Okay.
I did.
All right. That's good to know. That's good to know.
I like Doom Patrol better, and I like Animal Man the best. But it's still worth getting. But Doom Patrol was really groundbreaking too at the time.
So I think what I'm hearing from you, I should do Doom Patrol, Animal Man, and then go to Invisibles.
I would, yeah. I wouldn't. That's Invisibles. You need to be well steeped in Grant Morrison mythology before you tackle something like that.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know.
And I will say that I probably wouldn't even. There's a book called The Filth that was by him, put out by Vertigo. That thing, I feel like I'm a college graduate. I'm well read. I'm very good with understanding concepts and stuff. But wow, that book, The Filth, I had zero idea of what he was getting at. So if you decide to tackle that, you need to read everything else he's ever done and get an annotated version of that, because
Okay.
that is a big mind-blowing book. I mean, I couldn't even begin to tell you what it was about.
Interesting. Now you got me intrigued on that one. Someone in the chat asked if we have read Pride of Baghdad. I have not.
That's a Brian K. Vaughan book that is heartbreaking. It's great, but it's heartbreaking.
Great. And I think that's one of the reason I am kind of waiting for that, you know, like I've heard that that's a little bit like, you know, because I'm a little bit in a, I feel like, you know, when I'm super happy, I probably can read that and knock myself down a little bit. But yeah, I haven't read that one yet.
Yeah, it is. It's a good book. I mean, it's well written, well illustrated, but it is very much a heartbreaking book. So you need to, which, you know, when you think about it, is really great, because it's great that we have a hobby that has a medium that can take your emotions and rip them apart. I mean, that's a sign of a good, well-written book, that it can do that to you. It doesn't go for the cheap shot. It's a well-constructed, emotional book, and that's something we should be proud of as comic book fans, that we have something that's capable of that. Right. And it's not just some superhero punch-up.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, if you read The Vision, like, that's one of the reasons, Vision by Tom King. I should actually put that higher on my list. But that was one of the ones that is like, I never thought ever that a superhero book can be that effective in pulling strings of your emotion. The way, and that's one of the, after reading that, I'm like, that's it. No one else can come, like, you know, Tom King is the king. He is king. He's ever really named the king, you know, that book, and especially that and Omega Man. Oh my God. I'm still haven't read his Batman books yet, because I'm kind of waiting for it to go a little bit long, like, you know, further along, so I can read a whole bunch in a chunk. But Omega Man and Vision, and then Sheriff of Babylon, oh my God. And every one of them is so drastically different, but he managed to pull your emotion like so well in all of them.
Yeah, I really loved his. I haven't read. I've only read the first book, the first deluxe edition of Batman, but I loved it. I thought it was really well done. So, I mean, really well done. I really enjoyed it. He's the real deal. That guy knows how to write funny books, man. He is some kind of writer.
Funny books. The other, like, and that's one of the reasons, like, I think I was so interested by DMZ, because it talks about war in a way that I don't know if it was a prose novel, it would be just as effective, because there's like graphics that goes with it that really like, you know, that brings a different level to it. So, and this is like kind of like one of the ones that it will kind of always stay with me. I'm just getting rid of the dust jacket over here. It's one of the arc called Friendly Fire, and it's the end of the arc. It talks about pretty much using private first class as a patsy, as a scapegoat for something that the higher commands have done, you know. So it's there's more to it than that. And in the end, that soldier, it's not a spoiler, because you kind of see what's coming. You know, that soldier was killed, and he was kind of drafted into the war to begin with, because he wanted to avoid jail time. And it's a story. It's a common story. You know, you will hear it a lot of time. But the end of it is like, you know, he was dead, and he talks to his, like, you know, the writer, Matty Hall. He's talking that, oh, I talked with his mom. The mother asked me, did he suffer? And I said, I couldn't lie to her. And I said, yes, he did. And then the mother is like, well, in the war, someone has to. So that was so profound. And then it ends with this. It ends with this image of him overlooking the city of New York. And it just says, it says actually, you know, how the city pretty much took him, like, you know, he took his life. It's so profound. And I would always remember this. And it, after that aspect, like that page, I'm like, yes, this is going to be, this has to be in one of my top 10.
That's really well said about how the city took him.
Yeah, like it's pretty much
with
that.
that.
That was the thing. Like it's like the city, like or the city did nothing to save him. Like they
Right.
did not. Like in the end, like it's far more complicated than what I'm telling because without spoiler, I can't. It's kind of hard to
Mhm.
talk about this. But the thing is, it's pretty much like that was it's by that art, by that one panel, it everything that would have otherwise taken you 5 pages, you brought it home, and that to me is like the beauty of the comic medium.
Right. Yes, I totally agree with that.
Right.
I absolutely agree with that. John Wilson asks if I've read Sheriff of Babylon. Yes, I did. I read it a couple. Didn't that come out in 2016? I think it came out when
Yeah, somewhere
the
around that
Vega
line.
Men and Vision came out. It was like 2016 was his year when he came out with those 3 books. Yeah, I did read it, and that's a book that I will upgrade. I generally don't upgrade, but I will upgrade to the deluxe edition of Sheriff of Babylon. That was I mean, now that I know that he actually had to have pages taken out of it because of the CIA wouldn't let him do it, that's remarkable.
Right. And now, but the thing is, like, see, I kind of painted myself in a corner. I can't upgrade to deluxe because he signed my trade paperbacks.
That's right. Well, you can double dip, just don't get rid of that one, especially because you put happiness on it.
I know, but that's not my jam. If I kind of go into it's like kind of like how Batman says I must never kill because once it opens a rabbit hole. I feel like
Yeah.
double dipping will do that for me because
Oh,
there's
okay.
so many things I want to double dip, but I'm like, no, Freya, you must not. So it's kind of one of those things. I have to kind of abide by that rule.
Okay. Well, that's a good rule. Yeah, I don't double dip either. I will absolutely sell the trades for a couple of bucks each, and then put it towards the deluxe.
Right. Someone in the chat asked that, oh, where is Fariha's YT channel? So Fariha doesn't do YT channels because she's a coward, and she doesn't have enough time of the day to kind of do that. But however, I do show up, and I have a partnership with Peter Marineri, who goes by the name of Crushing Crisis, and we do a weekly. Every Tuesday we do a book club. So you can, if you wanna hear me yapping about comics, that's where you can find me every Tuesday. So
that's
I think
a great idea.
Right. Yeah. It's something that we started because I was like, oh, I'm reading Sandman. And he's like, I'm reading Sandman too. I'm like, oh, let's talk about it. That's how we started. But we kind of stopped doing Sandman, and now we're doing our own thing every Tuesday.
And so Batwoman is for March. And wait, what book was I suggesting after that?
Why the Last Man?
Why the Last Man? Yeah.
Right.
I think that I would love to hear both of you dissect that book.
Right, and I'm actually
so much.
Yeah, I had the trades for that, so I'm upgrading it to hardcover deluxe. So I actually currently waiting to get that. I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but if maybe doing the book club will probably trigger me into getting it.
Yeah, there's so much going on in that book, that series. Why can't I say that word? Sociologically, there's so much going on in that book that I would be very interested in your guys' interpretation of it.
Right. Yes. Sociological aspect. I mean, that book changed my life, though. That did. Because the thing is, I'm an engineer and I work in a plant. And since that book, I'm always in a constant fear that if all of these men decides to drop dead right there, we'll be screwed because I'm the only woman in the plant.
Is that right?
Yes. Well, actually, me and the environmental manager and another operator. There's 3 of us only. The problem is the environmental manager also has 2 sons, which means if the Why the Last Man happens, she will be going home. She will not be waiting there. And I'll be the only person left to keep the plant running or shut it down somehow.
Oh, man.
So I think about these things, and that's why I kind of asked me, I'm like, so how do you turn the boiler off? And my manager's like, why do you want to know? I'm like, I have reasons.
reasons. If the apocalypse happens and this particular chromosome is wiped out, I need to know how to turn off the natural gas outlet here. So
exactly.
boiler.
It's an important thing to know, because if that boiler goes, like, if that's left unattended, that entire section of the, like, that town would be wiped out.
Oh my God.
Yes. um yeah, I think weird things. I have 40 minutes to read every day, so I get to think about these things. Please don't judge me.
I'm not. I think it's hilarious. It's great.
Yes. So you haven't seen Black Panther yet, right?
No, I haven't. I'm going to be seeing it Tuesday or Wednesday. Can you give your thoughts in a spoiler-free way?
Yes, it's amazing. There you go. Spoiler-free.
That's it, huh?
No, it's actually, like, I know that we have kind of this is like 18th Marvel Comics, MCU movie, and I think it's kind of become one of the situations that they're so big now it's fashionable to hate them. Like, with MCU, like, there's a little bit aspect of that, but I feel like when it comes to origin story, this is better than Iron Man. There, I said it.
Wow.
Yes, because I try to tend to, like, kind of judge a movie based on what the challenges they were up against. Iron Man was trying to say that, oh, look, he's a dick, but he also gets to be a hero, right? It's not a lot of big challenge, and it has Robert Downey Jr. Come on, they didn't have any challenge, but Black Panther had to introduce the character, set him up, make sure that he goes from, like, he gets his origin, because he just became, like, Civil War, he lost his father, now he takes up the Black Panther mantle. But the thing is the fact that he gets to become a king and all of that. And then on top of that, they had to set up Wakanda, they had to set up, like, all the supporting characters, a villain that is the best villain Marvel ever offered. Like, it's everything that they have done. It's amazing, and I my hats off to them, because especially the world building aspect of it. Because of that, like, it's what it took Marvel 5 movies to do, they did it in 1 movie. Yeah. So because just solely because of that, it was amazing. And the thing is, like, I mean, it's kind of hard to talk about it without spoiler, but the position between Eric Killmonger and Black Panther, it's like, and T'Challa is just, it was perfect. It was perfect, because it talks about, there's a lot to unpack over there, sociologically, race relation wise, because that's pretty much like the African American experience versus African experience. And it was amazing. Everything of that movie was. I'm gonna be a complete fangirl about it. I'm gonna fight you if you disagree.
I'm totally excited to see it, and so's my movie buddy. We're both really excited to see it, and I may even, I may have done such a good job describing it that my wife may want to see it too. She's generally only likes Spider-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy. That's why I have my movie buddy to see all the other movies with. But I described it to my wife, and she said it sounded really interesting. So it's possible I might get her.
It is, and the thing is, like, it's also like, I would say that you can watch this movie without watching the first 17 movie. You don't need to. You don't need to know that. All you need to know that, okay, there is this thing called Avengers, and there's this thing called where there's a bunch of superheroes, but you don't need to know anything else, actually. That's my opinion. It's very self-contained. So, and even the sequences of Civil War is also incorporated in it.
Oh,
so
it
you
is?
kind of know.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it is. Yeah. So, and also, yeah, never mind. I can't talk about it without spoiling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, but the thing is, like, there's some interesting. There is a father-son interesting thing going on there too, which is kind of not known to a lot of people, but it's very interesting.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, having read Priest Run, And then going into the movie, it was even better experience because you get to see how they took the concept from the comic, but then upgraded, modernized it to so well. It's amazing.
Well, I think it sounds like it's going to be generating Star Wars type of numbers at the box office, which is really exciting.
Justifiably so. I have heard so many people that they have gone to see it or going to see it that I'm like, you like superhero movies? No, but it's Black Panther, so I'm gonna go see it. It looks cool. So, so that's pretty much based on that. It's amazing.
Yeah, good. I'm really excited to see it. Well, anything else that you would like to fangirl about today while I have you? Is there we covered Vertigo pretty darn well, I think.
Right, and I'm kind of I actually opened up the list of like all the Vertigo titles, and then I'm after reading DMZ, I'm really fangirling over Vertigo all of a sudden because it feels like it's such a they allow the writers to do their own things so well, like pretty much but still kind of coming from like a big two and stuff. So it's very interesting. Like I think Image and Vertigo, it's slowly becoming my top two publishers.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, but I really wish though that somehow they incorporated them to DC to a certain degree. Although I don't know how they can. But but the thing is, like a little bit of DC always slips into Vertigo's too, because even in DNZ there are people wearing like Batman shirts or things like that. Like there's all these things that goes in the background. But in my head, I always think that Sweet Tooth happens at the end of the DC world and DC universe and ended everything. Like so.
Okay.
I kind
of
put
interesting.
Yeah, in my head, I kind of try to put them in like different corners, put them in different corners of the Why the Last Man happens, then they come back up, then it was Transmetropolitan World, and then Sweet Tooth kind of ended all of it.
Oh, Sweet Tooth is the end of the world then.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
So we can't discuss it without spoiling, but it's literally that to me, that's the end of DC Vertigo universe.
Well, I need to rearrange my books then.
Yeah, you should.
Obviously, Sweet Tooth's out of place where it is right now then.
Right. It's going to be at the bottom of the shelf there.
So for we've been going for almost 2 hours now. So let's try and focus on your book of the month thing. Every Tuesday, is it Peter's channel?
Yes, Peter's channel. So I think it goes by, hang on. I should know this, right? Because I'm one of the co-hosts, but he's the one who does all the technical stuff for it.
Right.
So I am just kind of like, his partner in crime. I'm trying to look for it. There you go. Yeah, so it's Peter Marinari, and I am I'm dropping it right now in the chat. And I think you can.
I think you have to send it to me, and I can, because I'm the host.
Oh, okay.
I don't think you can. I send it to me, and then I'll.
I just did. So yeah, so Peter's channel. Peter, he's amazing, and he does the Crushing Crisis. He runs the Crushing Crisis website, where if you want to know how to collect character A, you go to his website, and you will have all the kind of everything that you need to know, all the information. So yeah.
Let's see. Did you send me?
I sent it to you on Hangout.
Using why don't you PM me on the Facebook group the address real quick, and then I'll post it for Peter's channel.
Okay, hang on. Let me send it to you right here. You want me to send it to you a Facebook message?
Yeah, I couldn't grab that. I saw what you did, but wait a minute. There's a message there.
There, I sent it to your Facebook.
Okay. All right, wait a second. Okay. Now I see how I could have done it. Okay. There's a question in the group. Okay, there we go. Peter Marinari. There's a question. Avi asks, Black Hammer, yay or nay? Have you read Black Hammer?
That's gonna be after Black Panther. Ta-Nehisi's Black Panther. I'm gonna be reading it. I actually have both of the trades sitting there right next to my reading pile, and I only picked it up because you talked about it so much.
I loved that book, and I totally love it, and I think you're gonna dig it too.
Okay. Yeah, it's one of the ones that has a little bit of superhero spin to it, right?
Yeah, it's an homage to Silver Age DC specifically, and Marvel, specifically like Jack Kirby. It's got a lot of Silver Age references to it, but it's its own book with really amazing characters that are they're kind of tortured. So they're all tortured basically. They're but I can't. The second book is making me wonder what's really going on. The first book, you sort of read Black Hammer and you just say, okay, this is the situation. I don't want to spoil anything. You say, okay, this is the situation. I accept it. The second book is making me question reality. What the reality is of their situation. If it's really happening, or if it's somebody's fever dream or something. I'm not sure. I need to read the second book again. I think I'll only know when the third book comes out, and I hope that wraps it up.
So there is a third book for it.
Yeah, because book 2 ends on another cliffhanger. Book 1 ends on a cliffhanger. Book 2 ends on a cliffhanger. So I'm assuming there's going to be a third one coming out.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, but the one that I'm really looking forward to read, and you talked about it, then a couple of my one of my colleagues also talk about it, is like My Favorite Thing is Monsters.
Oh yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it.
You will love that book. I know you will love that book.
Okay, interesting. Like, I'm so excited about that. So I think there is like a second volume coming soon.
Yeah, there is. For My Favorite Thing is Monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the spring that it's coming out. Maybe even next month. I'm not sure. There's no hardcover for Black Hammer yet. It's just the 2 trades.
Right.
Avi asked the question. And Lloyd Wong is asking Image/Indies next week. Is that what you're requesting me to have a guest on? And that's the topic, because I think that actually might work out. I do have a guest in mind that is very smart about indies and Image, and his name is Bon Idlehouse, and that would be a great thing to talk about, Image and other indie comics, because Bon is really good about that. If that's what you're talking about, Lloyd.
The next one for My Favorite Thing, Volume 2, is coming out on August 14th.
Oh, August?
Yes.
Okay.
Dang it. But one thing I actually did wanted to talk about, because you yesterday you were talking about that was the best way to kind of keep track of your collection.
Yeah.
With Sherlock. So let me introduce you to an app named Libib. So it's an app. It's an app called Libib. So what you can do, you can keep track. I don't know if you can see it. It's very hard to kind of show it over here. But what it does, like, you can actually, can you see it now properly?
It just looks like a blank screen to me.
Yeah. So anyway, so what it does is, like, you can actually scan the ISBN of your book, and it will kind of take all the information of the book and then kind of create a database for you. And you can transfer them over to your Excel file or anything, and you then keep track of them.
Oh, so it'd be a way for me to keep track of what I've read so far this year?
You can. So for that, I would recommend Goodreads. So
Goodreads. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Goodreads has a very good very good app, and you can also scan your book in, and you can say that, okay, I'm currently reading this, and then once you're done, you can move it over to the read section, and then you can keep track of all your reviews, notes, and everything like that. So if that's what your focus is, then I would recommend the Goodreads app.
Oh, and is this more of the thing you're talking about, more of an app of keeping track of everything you own?
Goodreads is more for keeping track of everything I read, but Libib is more for everything that I own. Because in that case, if I get rid of something, I can just get rid of it from the Libib, and then it doesn't affect my, that I've still read it, right? But so that's one of the reasons. And even in Goodreads, you can actually, there is a button you can press to say that I own this title, but it's a little bit cumbersome to kind of try to create multiple. Or what you can do, that if you add it in the group, in the Goodreads, you can also create bookshelves and then say that, oh, owned. So you can kind of have it over there as well. So there is another way of kind of keeping track of it.
And how do you spell this? It's Libib?
Yeah, so Libib.
Libib. Okay.
Yeah. So if you have it on that that thing, you can just keep track of all the stuff you have, and then you can use Goodreads as a way to kind of okay, I read these. So it's kind of like having a separate kind of ways of keeping track of it.
Yeah, because right now all I'm doing is writing it down on a piece of binder paper. I mean, you can't get more 1955 than that.
My heart's now bleeding after hearing that. But
I don't have a spreadsheet set up. I didn't have an app for it.
That's a good thing about Libib, though, because you can scan everything, then you can transfer it over to an Excel file, and then once you have it transferred over an Excel file, what I typically do, I just put a check, highlights them. So I highlight them or put a 1 next to them, so I can count what percentage of my collection I have read. It gets like I said, I'm an engineer, so I get to do all kinds of nerdy things. So according to my recent latest based as of yesterday, I have read 27.8% of my collection. That is shameful.
Oh God, mine's probably 9% at this point. I mean, and I feel I feel like I do nothing but read comic books every day, all day, as it is, which is part of the reason I'm cutting back, is because, as I said, I think yesterday, I'm in the bottom of the 6th inning of this game, and unless we go into extra innings somehow, I am not going to get all this stuff read before I die. So I've got.
Oh my God, that became very dark all of a sudden.
It's true, though. I mean, I want to read all this stuff, and so that's why I've got to cut it off at the stuff that I'm not going to really get to. That's why I'm selling some stuff off and just keeping the stuff I really want to read.
And I think that one of the good things, we see it a lot of the times as well, that people often get into this whole thing about, oh, every omnibus ever printed of character whatever. It's like, yeah, I get that, but you're not going to read not every story of every character is going to be good, because it really depends on the writers, it depends on the artists. So I think that it's better to kind of, if you figure out, okay, these are the characters I love so much, and then kind of try to read either you can go ahead and read all of every one of the stories that they have, or you can kind of moderate that a little bit and then say that, okay, what are the best runs of them? Because honestly, once you read the best runs of that character, everything else would be like, oh, okay, I mean, there's only so many times Peter Parker can turn into Venom or whatever it is that he turns into. I'm not a big fan of Spider-Man, so I can't speak to it. But the thing is, and then there's so many ways. Oh my God, Joker's about to kill Batman. Yeah, no, So it really depends on the writer, and I would highly recommend people that instead of trying to read and gather, collect everything, choose wisely. Choose based on is that okay? This run is for example, I don't need to read another Hal Jordan after this, because I figured out I don't like Hal Jordan, and I read the best run there's out there by Jeff Johns. So I don't have to read any more Hal Jordan. I'm satisfied. So it's kind of, having to know that limit for your set that limit for yourself will be kind of like the best stress-less way you can collect comics, read comics, enjoy it for what it is, rather than just be like a collector who have all these fancy shelves, but haven't read anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you need to. I think you said it exactly right. I can't add anything to that just wouldn't be redundant. You said it all exactly right.
Right.
So my computer's about ready to croak. And we've been going for 2 hours, but this has been really good talking to you. I think we had an excellent chat, especially about all the Vertigo stuff. And this has been great. I appreciate your being on the show, and
Anytime.
I appreciate everybody watching. You've been watching OmniDog's interview with a fangirl part 2. So I may see you at the next convention that we were talking about.
Right.
Depends on how well my foot heals. So I may be able to see you at that.
Right. But other than that, we talk every day.
Yeah, that's true. we do
talk every day.
Throughout the day. We do.
Yeah, I have mental breakdowns, and Jess and other admins are gracious enough to let me do that on the admin chat. So I do that all the time. Either I'm freaking out about something, I'm so excited about something, or just kind of like having a nervous breakdown because all of a sudden I thought about the boys.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we are definitely there for each other. We're there to support each other.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was a lot of fun, and I think I'm going to try to read Fables, because now you got me all excited about that again, because I stopped after like I think issue 20 or something. So yeah, but talking to you now, I'm actually kind of excited to read that again.
Oh, good. Well, I hope you enjoy it. I certainly enjoyed it. A lot of people feel like it sort of sagged in the middle. I'm not one of those people. Some people thought that. I didn't feel that way. I thought it was strong all the way through, but you may have a different opinion. So we'll just have to see.
Okay. But yeah, and I'm doing so. Yeah, if you really want to hear me talk about comics, join Peter's channel every Tuesday.
And what time is that?
8 p.m.
8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yes, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we talk about all good things about comics. Next week we're talking about Black Panther. Priests. I think that's we're finishing up with the second collection of Priests run. And the week 4, we're going to be talking about Tina Hasey's run. And then starting March, we're going to be starting to talk about Batwoman.
Nice. And you obviously know that I am OmniDog on OmniDog's Vault, all you viewers out there. And I also have an Instagram, OmniDogs_Vault. And I post things a couple times a week on that. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you for being my guest, Fangirl, and we will talk to you all the next time I do an interview. So peace and love. Thanks, guys.